Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman of today's proceedings, Mr. Richard Pear, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Science, Technology and Tertiary Education, Mr. Jagannath Soom, and our Deputy Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Angela Sinaswi-Gervais, Mr. Curtis Manchun, Chairman of the Board of Governors of the University of Trinidad and Tobago, and Mrs. Manchun, and members of the Board of Governors who are here with us this afternoon. Mr. Rodney Jagai, Acting President of UTT, Mr. Carlos Wright, Vice President Facilities, members of the John Donaldson family who are here with us. We are very proud indeed and very honored to have you with us. Members of the Creative Industries Sector Advisory Committee, which advises the National Training Agency on occupational standards to this sector. Professor Emeritus, Professor Selwyn Ryan, Professor Brinsley Samaru, who I met earlier on in my way on here, past principals of John Donaldson Technical Institute, members of staff, faculty, students, specially invited guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Throughout the world, Trinidad and Tobago is known for its culture and creativity. Two words which are synonymous with the country's national festivals, among which include Carnival, the Tobago Heritage, and Ramlila. Today, I am pleased to be at the launch of the UTT's John S. Donaldson Port of Spain Creativity Campus, where we have come together to celebrate the rebranding of this very significant landmark and beacon of tertiary education in our capital city of Port of Spain. I applaud UTT for its efforts in rebranding its campuses as centers of excellence, all in an effort to better serve its students, staff, and surrounding communities. The launch of the UTT John S. Donaldson Port of Spain Creativity Campus represents the first of the UTT's campuses to benefit from this rebranding exercise. It was a Swiss psychologist and pioneer in the study of child intelligence, Jean Piaget, who once said, "The principal goal of education is to create persons who are capable of doing new things, not simply of repeating what other generations have done, men who are creative, inventive, and discoverers." Today, therefore, is in a sense for me to join with you in the rededication of the spirit of the early pioneers, for us to pursue their dreams within the context of a new framework for the next 50 years in the lives of Trinidad and Tobago. As I was coming to this function, I said I must in fact mention a bit of the history, in a sense, and those who contributed. Because very often we tend to forget those who would have brought us to where we are. And therefore, I went to a book written by Drs. Clifford and Linda Dyer, entitled The History of Industrial Education and Training in Trinidad and Tobago, its first volume in 1994, and its second edition in 2007. And I'm quoting from an excerpt in that book which says, "Approval for the construction of the Port of Spain Technical Institute on Ryson Road was obtained in 1959, and shortly afterwards construction began on the 7-acre site of reclaimed land near the Port of Spain docks. The Premier, Dr. Eric Williams, laid the cornerstone, I'm sure you're going to see that as you walk into the hall, on May the 26th, 1961. Isn't it coincidental that we are here in this month of May? The laying of this stone was one of the local highlights in the commemoration of Commonwealth Technical Training Week. On this occasion, Premier Williams named the institute the John Donaldson Technical Institute in memory of the late Minister of Education, John Sheffield Donaldson, who had recently passed away in an unfortunate motor vehicle accident and who had done pivotal work in putting the institute on stream. Ladies and gentlemen, I said I was indeed very honored. In fact, I requested the chairman in coming here to today's function to ask whether we will not have the presence and be blessed by that presence of the members of the Donaldson family. I would like to ask all of us to stand and applaud the contribution to the family and the name of John Donaldson, of our Mr. John Donaldson here, former government minister, his dear wife, their daughter, and the sister. May the memory, I thank you very much. May the memory and the spirit of John S. Donaldson continue through this rebranded Creativity Campus. But then there's another name that we are very familiar with, and we are very fortunate that he is among us. The new principal of the school at that time was a Norbert Masso, who is now Dr. Norbert Masso, and his dedicated staff formulated among themselves a conceptualization of technical and vocational education in Trinidad and Tobago. Subsequent to that, the institute became a campus of the University of Trinidad and Tobago under the leadership of Professor Ken Julian. And we want to recognize both Dr. Masso and Professor Julian, and you may give them a round of applause as well. Ladies and gentlemen, tertiary education represents and presents an avenue for students to explore the possibility of their creativity. This very campus houses undergraduate programs in fashion and design, fashion management, ICT, animation, and visual communications. Indeed, the first indication of the creativity emanating from the UTT John S. Donaldson Port of Spain Creativity Campus is in the offerings of the students themselves. Several of the graduates of this Creativity Campus have excelled in their various spheres of study. This display of excellence is by no means accidental. What is occurring here is actually a product of the deliberate positioning of our resources to produce quality relevant to the needs of our city and our country. The various talents resident at UTT, at both the institutional and individual levels, have been fused together to support a deliberate strategic intent. Further, with the support of my ministry, in terms of the structures that we have placed, we will ensure that there is an alignment of UTT's even articulated vision, strategy, and purpose with that of the national development plans. As Mr. Manchun indicated, this is not just simply the changing of the colors of the property. In fact, it is also an addition to this property, as we welcome the Metal Industries Company Limited as a partner with UTT on this very compound. And we have in our presence the chairman of the Metal Industries Company, Mr. David Lee. And we want to say, Mr. Lee, that I'm sure as you would have gotten that appreciative round of applause, that you feel justly at home as well. But what is the result of this deliberate process? It is a space where excellence can flourish. The benefits of this type of transformation we see here today will soon be evident throughout the entire tertiary landscape and will further result in a high-achieving and relevant cadre of graduates, relevant to our country's economic and social development. In a recent Times magazine, which I shared with Mr. Manchun, and also in The Economist of last month, and more particularly elaborated in The Economist magazine, it said that we are witnessing what some call the third industrial revolution. The first industrial revolution began in Britain in the late 18th century with the mechanization of the textile industry. The second industrial revolution came in the early 20th century when Henry Ford mastered the moving assembly line and ushered the age of mass production. Now, it is said The third is underway, that is manufacturing, that is going digital. The old way of making things involved in taking a lot of parts and welding them together are no longer going to be as in terms of the 3D dimensions which we are going to witness. Now a product can be designed on a computer and printed on a 3D printer, which creates a solid object by building up successive layers of material. The digitization of manufacturing will make training easier. Also, in recent times you would have read that at the Warwick University in Britain, a room with giant high-resolution screens is used as a virtual reality chamber to simulate products under development, such as cars in 3D dimension. I have come to understand, ladies and gentlemen, that some graduates of UTT's animation programs have formed an animation studio lab, Lab LAB 206, which is aptly named after the computer laboratory in which they studied, which is located right here on this campus. Lab 206 was founded by 6 graduates of UTT's animation program who clearly believe the entrepreneurial mandate of UTT, as they not only form their own businesses, but have since gone on to produce advertisements for elite corporate clients, including those in the banking sector, as well as for reputable advertisement agencies with links both nationally and internationally. Mr. Anthony Batiste, a graduate of UTT's Diploma in Digital Media Animation program, was one of only 15 international applicants accepted by the prestigious Sheridan College Institute of Technology and Advanced Learning in Winnipeg, Canada. This is no small feat, as Sheridan College is not only one of the best schools for animation in Canada, but is among the best in the field of animation studies worldwide. Anthony is here with us today. He's still an example of that type of quality student and that graduate of UTT. Ladies and gentlemen, the goal of the government is therefore to develop UTT into the best technological and entrepreneurial university in the country and by extension in the region. And we believe, together with you, we have just that right formula to accomplish this. Many persons would recall the recent win by Trinidad and Tobago's own Anya Ayongchi at the US-based Project Runway reality show. But how many of you know that it was UTT's own Miss Delia Allen, a student of UTT's Caribbean Academy of Fashion and Design, who taught Ms. Ayongchi the rudimentary skills and techniques in sewing and crafting that were needed to survive in this international platform. Delia, who was able to do this in just 4 months before Ms. Ayongchi left for the United States, is now well on her way to establishing her own jewelry label and launching her own fashion label within Trinidad and Tobago. She too is a testament of the entrepreneurial drive that is being exhibited throughout UTT, and we congratulate her. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure that there are many other success stories, very numerous to mention, but also what we'll want to do is to acknowledge them at some future time in terms of the Students' Hall of Fame at the John S. Donaldson Technical Institute, UTT campus. I say all of this to further cement the fact that students of UTT, John D, as we say, Creativity Campus, are indeed practicing the very talents of what they envision as the Creativity Campus, to be a place where talent, imagination, and vision are nurtured. Today, I'm also very pleased to inform you that the creativity established at this campus is also giving rise to entrepreneurship, an ideal that is explicitly founded in UTT's vision and mission. But in addition to being a place of creativity, this rebranded UTT John D. Creativity Campus is also to be known as the campus where the art meet the science. These are, in fact, the watchwords by which this campus will now be also known. Programs in ICT will operate from this campus, and students will continue to be exposed to an array of ICT programs which are sure to impact the national thrust for ICT expansion, responsive to the needs of digital media and graphic arts, but also responsive to the needs of the diversification and the talent distribution and discovery and management of Trinidad and Tobago. It is clear then, ladies and gentlemen, that the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, led by our esteemed political leader of the People's Partnership, and Honourable Prime Minister Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bisesa, is committed to providing education to fit the diverse range and talents of the individual, to help him or her nurture that creativity and explore the avenues of entrepreneurship which may arise as a direct result. I firmly believe that there is a direct correlation between creativity and entrepreneurship, and further offer that the government has a deliberate strategy and the requisite expertise to harness and direct this intent and power for the benefit of our country. We are focused on engaging all available country resources in a calculated manner to effect the sustained growth and development of our nation. The government of Trinidad and Tobago is committed to diversifying the program offerings, not just at UTT John D. Creativity Campus, but overall throughout the UTT campuses. My ministry will engage with consultants and the best minds to determine and to ensure that the UTT graduates meet the needs of the labor market or can create their own job opportunities. In this regard, you may have seen recently on the television, we launched what is called the Labor Market Report or the Jobs Report. And we started with the energy sector. And that is where our graduates can obtain information and respond to application for jobs, but also in reverse manner, what kind of opportunities for new training programs can influence those who are engaged in the providing of training. The plans for UTT, the National University of Trinidad and Tobago, are in direct alignment with the national development plans of the government. In fact, as you would have heard mentioned briefly by the chairman, UTT will soon launch programs in aviation studies, following the signing of an MOU with Caribbean Airlines, which we expect will take place within the next week or so. Today, it's interesting to note that the mechanical engineers who are now employed at the National Airline were trained right here at UTT John S. Donaldson campus. In fact, I can tell you about a situation that I know. A young man who came from a senior comprehensive school in central Trinidad came here and did a mechanical engineering technicians program. Went on the job training workshop experience at the then BWI hangar in Piaco, and is now flying one of the 737 jets of Caribbean Airlines. That is the kind of progress that we want to recognize. I recall as well in my days when I was a teacher that many of my colleagues in the vocational stream would have come here to be trained in the TVET classes. And this campus would have at least contributed significantly to many of what we call the TVT 1s in those days, Technical Vocational Training Teacher 1, who after their graduation here would have gone on to become TVT 3, or those who would have entered as TVT 2s in the scale would have gone on to be the equivalent of range 46, a graduate teacher out of the university at TVT 4. So this campus clearly has a long and illustrious history of excellence, and I pay tribute to everyone from the John Donaldson family to our former leaders, both in terms of government and in terms of academia. In the near future as well, within this month, we plan to witness an exhibition on science and technology of ancient and modern India. That is going to be launched formally on the 21st of this month, May. I was advised as well this morning that the Minister of Culture of India, Mrs. Kumari Selja, will be represented by the Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Sangeeta Gairola, and again, not only at the opening of that Science Center, but will be the beneficiary of a steel pan donation from UTT, as was promised on the recent mission to India. The Government of India and the Ministry of Culture and the Ministry of Science, Technology and Tertiary Education, we have agreed to facilitate plans to student exchange with respect to people and students and faculty in music between both India and Trinidad and Tobago, with particular reference to the pan music. Mr. Shambhu Palke of Reliance Media. Reliance Industries is one of the largest industries in India and one of the largest oil companies in the world, will be here at the Caribbean Investment Forum next week, Monday, to look at opportunities for Trinidad and Tobago in the animation industry, and we wish to invite him to visit your faculty here and your campus. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I wish to commend UTT, the chairman, members of the Board of Governors, president and staff for the efforts to bring these campuses into closer alignment with the mission, the vision, and the strategy of the government and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. This is indeed our presence here today, is testimony not only of the significant accomplishments, but we dedicate and commemorate this as a 50th anniversary legacy project. And we pray Almighty God's blessings that many more will come through the doors, as in the past years, when this facility was a beehive of activity, not only in the day, but at nights and on weekends. And I look forward as minister, when all the citizens of this country, and particularly those in the northern and northwest and central areas, will make use of this facility as we prepare to ensure that we build competencies and capabilities for the workforce of the 21st century that will make Trinidad and Tobago a truly competitive nation. And I want to commend this facility and congratulate all of you and wish you God's blessing. I thank you.